on the price on pollution. 8 out of 10 Canadians in provinces like Ontario, where the backstop applies, get more money back than they pay in. This year in Ontario, a family of 4 is going to be getting $1,100 back, a little bit more than $1,100 back. That is real, meaningful support. And, you know, honest mistakes will be made. Our government is absolutely confident that the price on pollution returns more money to the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians. It is, and that there's just kind of common sense to that. 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back with the carbon rebate. 8 out of 10 Canadians, more money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you're having a wonderful day so far. I got a good one for you today. So hopefully you liked that intro I gave you today, a little compilation of Chrystia Freeland agreeing to every carbon tax plan Justin Trudeau put forward to her. But now she's finally put her bid in for Liberal leader, and let's just say I don't think it went to plan for her. Through protesters, people clapping her name, and just her lying the whole way through, let's just say it didn't go well. But first, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I noticed that 95% of viewers haven't subscribed yet, and I would really like, so if you could take 5 seconds and push that subscribe button, that would be amazing. Now, don't further ado, let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, come on. Let's be respectful of democracy, and let's be respectful of the kids at this Boys and Girls Club. This is not okay. It is not okay to disrupt Canadian democracy. And I want to tell everyone, I am not afraid, and I'm not going to back down.
Oh, so it's not okay for quote-unquote protesters to do this when the hand's on the other foot, and you're trying to have a rally, and people banging on stuff, and people are going nuts. It's not just a peaceful protest when that happens, but when it happens at a conservative rally, or, you know, truckers trying to protest near the parliamentary building, and that's not okay. At least now Chrystia Freeland's getting a little taste of her own medicine. But I will say, it is not okay what these quote-unquote protesters are doing. That should not be happening in Canada. You stand there with your signs and you let it go.
And no one in this room is going to back down, and no one who stands with us across the country is going to back down. Canadians are just not going to put up with it. You can have a different point of view, but you cannot stop others from speaking, and you cannot stop our democracy. Okay? And I mean, come on. Who is going to interrupt saying a couple of nice things about the St. Albans Boys and Girls Club where we are right now? Really, who is going to stop us from saying a few words about the St. Albans Boys and Girls Club? Anyone here want to protest the St. Albans Boys and Girls Club? You have a chance, okay? Anyone here doesn't like the St. Albans Boys and Girls Club? Shout now. I'm inviting you, shout, tell me why you think it's a bad thing for kids here to have some lessons, to get some great meals, for this great community center to help the kids and families of this neighborhood that I represent. Do you want to yell about that? Do you want to yell about that? Okay. I didn't think so. You shouldn't. You should not be yelling and shouting down the St. Albans Boys and Girls Club. This is a great place. I am very glad to be here.
Okay, there's a reason why I'm putting this in the video, is because she's projecting, at least in my point of view, all of this protesting onto the St. Albert's Children's Club, which is disgusting to me because I did a little bit of research and the protesters are Free Palestine people. That's what they were there all about. They weren't protesting against the Child's Club. Yet Chrystia Freeland, I don't know if she did this because she couldn't hear the people in the back, which I've been on a stage before and you can hear everything. So I'm definitely sure she heard what they were saying. And that is just rude, how she pretended that they were protesting the Child's Club there, which she knows is a good thing. She knows that nobody would protest against a children's club. So we're starting off at a pretty low footing here, Chrystia.
About why I'm running to lead our amazing country. I am the very proud mother of 3 amazing kids. I owe so much to my parents. My dad hired men to help on the farm with seeding and at harvest, but he always insisted on taking the very earliest shift himself. My mother, who couldn't speak English on her first day of school in Canada, was one of just 7 women in her law school class at the University of Alberta.
Okay, and this is just where she goes through her life. I will skip through this and, well, do a little quick one here. So what she pretty much says is she was born and raised in Calgary, or in Alberta on a farm, yada yada. She thankfully got to go to Ottawa and to become a media person or journalist, sorry. And then, yes, go to Ottawa and then become, let's get forward to the actual juicy parts.
In 2015, I moved from the backbenches into government. As trade minister, I delivered a trade deal with the European Union. More valuable today. I did, and that deal is more valuable today than ever. As foreign minister, I stood up to Donald Trump.
Now, let's see that deal, shall we? Because this is going to be something extremely significant in her running. So here's a CBC article about the new USMCA agreement from 6 years ago. Let's see how the CBC put it to how well Canada made out with this change.
A new tool for the disruptor-in-chief. Donald Trump now has veto power over part of Canada's trade agenda because of a provision in the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. There's a clause that aims to prevent free trade talks with China. Chapter 32 says if Canada, the U.S., or Mexico want to start free trade talks with a non-market or state-run economy, the other 2 partners must first approve or they can kill the USMCA.
It is troubling to provide another country with a formal role in vetting Canadian trade negotiations.
The Trump administration hates China's trading policies and is waging a tariff war to pressure its government into changing its ways. Chapter 32 is seen as part of that wider strategy.
You know, the continent as a whole now stands united against what I'm going to call unfair trading practices by you-know-who. Starts with a C and it ends with an A.
Canada?
No. Nice try.
Canada is now in an uncomfortable position. The Prime Minister wanted to strengthen ties with China and even traveled to Beijing last December in a failed attempt to launch free trade talks. Those efforts are not dead, he says, despite the provision.
And we, as always, will look for ways to engage, deepen, and improve our trading relationship with them.
Canadian canola farmers have serious questions about what this all means, since they say they could make up to $1 billion more per year if they had free trade with their biggest customer.
China is a really important market for us. We see an opportunity to grow in that market in the future.
It's an opportunity they don't want to miss out on because of Donald Trump. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
The new deal also means we'll see more American dairy products on store shelves, and that has some concern about bovine growth hormones. Right now they're banned in Canada, but as Catherine Cullen explains, they pose more of a risk to cows than humans.
Do we really know what's in our milk? Just because it says this, we heard there could also be this.
I think it's important for people to know that almost all foods contain trace quantities of hormones or hormone-like compounds.
With the new trade deal opening up Canada's market a bit more to some U.S. products,
including milk, butter, cheese, yogurt, and ice cream, to name a few.
Some people are wondering, do you have to worry about hormones in your milk, or other dairy products for that matter? About 1 in 5 American dairy farms use a hormone called RBST, recombinant bovine somatotropin. They inject cows with it so they'll produce more milk, but BST isn't used in Canada. This doctor was part of the expert panel that recommended a BST ban back in 1999 over concerns about what it does to cows. Dr. Michael Pollack says it's a different story for people.
It's been studied very carefully, and there is no proof that it's dangerous, but it still remains a bit of a scientific controversy because it's impossible to rule out small, subtle effects.
So if there's no proven threat, why the fuss?
Am I playing Russian roulette with my family?
Certainly, campaigns like this have raised questions.
Fears around the use of BST have been overblown, I suspect, and for good reasons. Obviously, we wanted to protect our market, and we wanted to sell to Canadians that our practices are very strong and robust.
But you still...
So, just gonna stop it right here for a little bit. So first off, now that the U.S. has the ability to stop Canada trade relations with any country, especially with its biggest competitor, which is China. I mean, not that trading with China is a good thing, because we saw what happened with our trade with them during the two Michaels disagreement. All trade stopped there, and it hurt the Canadian economy. Still, that is huge. And now dairy, which Canada won't even let the UK, which is one of our friends and historical friends, they won't even let them touch our dairy market. And it's been a big thing with our with our trade agreement with them. But yet we have it with the United States.
Bill might be wondering, will I be able to tell if it's in my milk? You can tell if you're buying a Canadian product because it's branded like this, but there are still some calls for BST-specific labels for U.S. products.
Should consumers know? I would say yes, absolutely, and let them decide.
Even if there's no evidence, safety's an issue. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Yeah, but Food, Drug, and Health Organization, they always say that, there's no proof. I mean, it could be bad for you in like 10 years. It'll slowly kill you, but, I mean, you won't, pass away in a year, so technically it's not bad. They always did it. They did this with sugar, they did this with fat, they did this with seed oils. So I'll let you guys decide whether or not we really made out like bandits during the NAFTA agreement, and if Chrystia Freeland really did that well during the NAFTA agreements. And I'll reiterate, we weren't there during the signing, and I think there's a reason why I cannot find that on any of the YouTube videos on the YouTubes. But anyways, let's get back to Chrystia Freeland.
As finance minister, I stabilized the economy during the COVID recession. We brought inflation and interest rates down more effectively than any other country in the G7. And 50 years after Canadian women first started the fight, and thanks to the leadership of pioneering women in Quebec, I am so glad to have finally brought in $10 a day daycare across the country. Donc, un gros merci aux féministes québécoises. Existential threat. These bread and butter issues are more important today than ever because our country is facing what could well be an existential threat. Tomorrow, Donald Trump will be inaugurated as President of the United States. He has threatened to hit Canada with 25% tariffs on everything we sell to the U.S. He wants to steal our jobs and drive away investment. He has spoken clearly and repeatedly about making our Canada the 51st state. Yeah, and he's threatened to use
that ain't
economic
happening.
coercion to do so. Yeah, that is absolutely right. We do have to stop him, and we will.
Well, I'm glad we're starting to get to the wheeze, and it's starting to change from Mark Carney's announcement, because I was starting to see a similar trend when Freeland was saying, I stabilized the economy, I battled Trump, I brought in $10 day daycare, which was actually the NDP forcing the Liberals to do that through their supply and confidence agreement, but let's just forget about that. So there was starting to be a lot of I's, not me and my team, we. Like, even if you're going to use the royal we, come on.
We will be united. We will be strong. We will be smart. And that's why we will win.
Though she's got no track record of any of this. She destroyed us with money printing during COVID. How does she think she helped us? Like, are we not economically screwed right now? And who was the finance minister during that? It was Freeland. And now she's trying to wipe the slate clean.
And Canadians from every walk of life and of every political conviction. I did it during NAFTA. I did it during COVID, and I will do it again. I will unite every province and territory, business leaders and working people, and Canadians from every walk of life and of every political conviction. I did it during NAFTA. I did it during COVID, and I will do it again.
I don't remember any unity during any of those times. Does anybody remember the unity of COVID when, I don't know if I could even say that word still, when these liberals started ripping families apart by saying, oh, we couldn't gather in a certain amount of groups. And I'm not letting provincial politicians off the hook here either, but they're doing that. They required vaccinations to go in between provinces and pass the borders. They required vaccinations for public jobs, for federal jobs, and people lost their jobs and lost their incomes. Oh, but that was bringing Canadians together. I mean, when you lose your job, you really have to come together and build a community so you can survive. So I guess in that way, she did.
This is the lesson of the peace country. When it's 40 below, every man is your friend, and you don't lock your cabin door. When we play as Team Canada, we win. Unity is the first step. Next, we need to recognize this is a time for Canada to be strong. So, I have a message today for President Trump. We are your neighbor and your most important trading partner. You export more to Canada than to China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. Canadians and Americans are friends. We're often family. We are allies. We have fought shoulder to shoulder in 2 world wars, in Korea, in Afghanistan. We won't pick a fight with you. We don't want a fight with you. But if the fight comes to our door, remember, we love our country just as much as you love yours.
I kind of do like that. It's good that she's sticking with the patriotic Canada first sort of rah-rah stuff. That's definitely something Mark Carney did not do. So, good on her for at least doing that.
Canada is not for sale, and our sovereignty is not negotiable. Le Canada n'est pas à vendre et notre souveraineté n'est pas négociable. So, if you hit us, we will hit back. And I promise, if I'm Prime Minister, our response to illegal and unjustified tariffs will be dollar for dollar retaliation.
See, it's easy for her to say that right now as she's just running for the Liberal Party leader, and she'll probably be like prime minister for, I don't know, 3 days. But that's going to do a lot of damage to Canadians' livelihoods and damage to workers here that work for American companies or companies that, well, international companies. And the people who are clapping in the background, I don't even know if they know what that means. That's why our federal government, they're not looking into doing that. They're looking into doing tariffs incrementally, which is the way to go. And that's why Alberta's like, no, we're not going to do dollar by dollar tariffs on oil, because that would destroy our oil and gas sector, and that's the majority of Alberta's income. But you can tell that Freeland doesn't get that. And the people behind her and the people who are applauding don't get that either.
If you force our hand, we will inflict the biggest trade blow that the United States has ever endured. Canada will not escalate. But if I am Prime Minister, Canada will never back down.
That too, I don't think... Sure, it's great to say that in front of Canadians, but you also have to say to Americans and explain to them why this is going to hurt them and how this is going to hurt them. Especially when you're on the podium announcing your leadership. You got to do that so Americans will realize and tell Trump that, hey, we don't want this, because Canadians are saying all of this stuff is going to go up for us. And Americans are having a hard time as it is. And middle-class Americans are the ones who voted for Donald Trump. Well, and even lower-class Americans did as well. So you gotta imagine if Canada comes out and says, like, hey, if America does this, we're gonna have to do this too. And that means everything from oil and gas to the food you buy will increase. But no, that would take a little bit of, investigating, and that would take a little bit of, suave, but she doesn't have that.
And then there's Pierre Poilievre. You know what the real problem with Pierre Poilievre is? It's not that he's mean. We know that. It's not that he's a career politician. We know that. It's not that he doesn't have a plan. We know that too. The real problem with Pierre Poilievre, he is weak. He's afraid to fight back against people he admires. Sure, he's happy to dunk on the Liberals on Twitter, but he will never stand up to Donald Trump. He can't even stand up to Danielle Smith.
Interesting how she's saying all this and she hasn't done any of it. She hasn't stood up to Trump since the NAFTA agreement. She hasn't stood up to Danielle Smith, because you see, Danielle Smith just said, no, we're not putting tariffs on oil. And of course Pierre Poilievre's not going to come out, because why would he? He has no power over that yet. He's leader of the opposition. Now, I guess for like 3 days, if Chrystia Freeland wins, she will. But I can't believe she just called Pierre Poilievre a coward. That's not like the pot calling the kettle black.
No mistake. If Pierre Poilievre is elected, He will be on the first flight to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. He will bend down and sell us out. Laissez-moi vous dire quelque chose. Lorsque on a affaire à un intimidateur, la faiblesse est une provocation. Il y a une raison pour laquelle Donald Trump sait exactement qui je suis. Il y a une raison. As finance minister, I fought for Canadian families.
Okay, this is taking a little bit long, so let's switch to the question and answer period.
Hi, Ms. Freeland. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Hoping you can answer this in both English and French. Folks close to you have told us that if you become PM, you plan to scrap the carbon tax and replace it with something else. But as early or as most recently as December 9th, you extolled the virtues of both the carbon tax and the rebate. So can you tell us over the past 41 days what has changed in your thinking that the carbon tax is not the right thing to go forward with?
Thanks for the question, Mackenzie. And the time has come for us as a government, as a country, to do two things. I think we all know we have to fight against climate change. We all get that. We need to do it for our kids. We need to do it for the planet. Liberals believe in that, and that is a fight that has to continue. But it is also the case that we need to get better at listening to Canadians and at listening to what Canadians are telling us. And we have heard very clearly from Canadians in provinces where there is a consumer-facing price on carbon that they don't like it. That's something that we have to listen to. Democracy means when people tell you something, you have to listen. And I will say, our party hasn't been good enough at that. That has to change, and I am going to change that.
Okay, I don't know if this lady doesn't know that YouTube's a thing, but I just made a whole compilation of where over the past 7 years, Canadians of every walks of life have been begging the Liberals to stop with the carbon tax, to please, we're dying here, we need this money. And Chrystia Freeland herself over and over and over and over again spouted 8 out of 10 Canadians get more back than they put in the federal carbon tax.
Thank you, Ms. Freeland. Kamal Karamali here with CTV National News. Curious to know why you're boasting of it as an advantage that Donald Trump doesn't like you, especially between two key trading partners. Shouldn't you be getting along with them? And secondly, curious to know why you've limited questions to one per media outlet, especially when you haven't been available for such a long amount of time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Look, Donald Trump doesn't like me for one simple reason. I have been fierce, resolute, and effective in defending Canada, in defending Canadians, and in defending the Canadian economy, in negotiations with the United States, in negotiations with his administration. He doesn't like that. He prefers pushovers. And I want to assure Canadians that I am up for the fight, and I will be firm and resolute in the defense of the national interest. You want someone as leader of the Liberal Party and as Prime Minister who Donald Trump is afraid of.
So here's Trump's view on why he doesn't like Chrystia Freeland. So let's just not take her point of view for it, because I don't think the way she sees things is correct.
To troll Prime Minister Trudeau, demoting him to a state governor while delivering a personalized insult to Chrystia Freeland, who spent a big part of her political career as a trade minister brokering the NAFTA deal.
So let's read this. So Donald Trump said her behavior was totally toxic and not at all conducive to the making of deals which are good for the very unhappy citizens of Canada. I can say we're very unhappy, so that sounds correct. She will not be missed. That sounds correct. So, from Donald Trump's point of view, he's not scared of her whatsoever.
Before moving to finance. Now, Trump posted, the great state of Canada is stunned as the finance minister resigns or was fired from her position by Governor Justin Trudeau.
Our relationship is very good. We are actually working on cutting tariffs and making it all very fair for both countries.
So it was after that summit that relationship soured. Trump ripped into Trudeau, calling him very dishonest and weak when Trudeau tried to push back. Now, eventually, those tariffs were lifted. NAFTA was renegotiated, but that was then. And here we are.
And the reason for that was because Justin Trudeau talked behind Trump's back right after that. And yeah, that's a way to sour a relationship between someone. But, you know, that's how Justin Trudeau rolls. He likes to talk behind people's backs. Anyways, let's continue.
Singled out by these protesters, and is there anything of substance that you can say to their concerns about the government's response to the war?
Thank you for the question. I do want to say I am really grateful that we live in a democracy. I am really grateful that we live in a country where everyone can express their view and where everyone has the right to protest. That is an amazing thing about Canada, and it's really important that people can disagree with each other and that everyone can state their view. It's also the case that the right to protest doesn't include the right to disrupt other people's right to speech. That is also essential about Canada. We cannot allow protest doesn't mean drowning out other people's voices. That is entirely unacceptable. That is not how Canadian democracy works. And I know that Canadians are not going to stand for that, and neither will I.
Well, she's been standing for it for the past 9 years, except when it comes to truckers. Then you just enact the Emergencies Act and then get armed policemen and RCMP to attack the protesters. So, yeah, everybody remember that one? Oh, and a little reminder, not just attack protesters, but freeze their bank accounts and disrupt their rights as Canadians.
When it comes to the Middle East, let me just say I am cautiously optimistic about the ceasefire in Gaza. I think we all share that sense of cautious optimism. For me, and I think for all of us, what has happened has been absolutely heartbreaking. It has been awful to see the images, to hear the stories, to see the carnage. That is absolutely unacceptable. Canada has been calling for a ceasefire. I am cautiously optimistic about the ceasefire that has been announced. It is so important for people to stop dying, and it is so important to recognize the pain, the heartbreak, the tragedy.
And how about the kidnapping of innocent Israelis that, well, I think have been given back by now, but just recently they've passed on as well, but, you know, no mention of prisoners. Now, I'm not going to give my 2 cents on the Israel-Palestine conflict because I don't know enough about it, but I'm getting a little tired of our politicians only saying things about one side of the conflict and not of the other just because it's not politically friendly. It's really irritating. If you're going to remain neutral and tell both sides of the stories.
Good afternoon, Rafi Wujikani on CBC News. Could you explain why your difference of opinion with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on the economy started when he wanted to change your job in cabinet? Why was this the catalyst for you to begin speaking out?
Because the difference didn't start then. For some time, I had been in disagreement with the Prime Minister, specifically over spending. Those disagreements got worse after President Trump threatened to impose 25% tariffs on our country. At that point, I realized that we faced what could be an existential threat. And I realized that we had to really focus all of our energies on being ready for that threat. We had to keep our fiscal firepower dry. I was very clear about that, and we saw the consequences.
So it wasn't about the $62 billion deficit that came in. It was about Donald Trump and how to deal with him. Let's be specific, Freeland. You don't have to worry about Trudeau anymore. Just tell it how it is. And if she's being specific, then I just lost a little respect for her right now. The little that I had.
Hi, Vipal Manga from the Wall Street Journal. You talked about the importance of unity taking on Trump in this trade war. What's your strategy for bringing Alberta online?
That is a really good question. And one of the things that I do think we need to do as a country is build a true Team Canada. You know, I know that Canada can win. I know that Canada has what it takes because we always have. But I do not minimize at all the threat we face. And the way we win, the way we won when we renegotiated NAFTA, the way we succeeded during COVID was by building a true Team Canada approach. We have to do that again. Canada includes Alberta, and we do have to work hard with Alberta to get Alberta on side. I'm really ready and happy to do the work that it takes to do that. And I also want to say I'm relying on the other premiers of the other provinces and territories. A true Team Canada effort means all of us have to work together, and that is work that I've done. I've shown that I can get along with Conservative premiers, with NDP premiers, and with Liberal premiers. I know it can be achieved. It's something we need to do, and I am prepared to roll up my sleeves and do it.
So again, not answering the question. I mean, come on, Freeland, you're not running in Alberta. Let's just hear it out as it is. Take your inner Trump and and tell us what you would do. I mean, as I think Albertans would love is get rid of the Equalization Act. That would be amazing. I mean, that would be more than Stephen Harper would have done, and you might get some Albertan voters if you did that. Or you could say that you'd force some pipelines through some provinces, I'm talking about Quebec here, and get Energy East up and running, and get that in writing. That would do a lot. Maybe give some concessions of pipelines to Alberta. And how about give Alberta some recognition on what we do and stop demonizing our oil and gas sector? Because that's exactly why Daniel Smith is not doing it. Because Eastern Canada shits on Alberta all the time for the work that we do and the oil we create and the money that we send to Ottawa. But when the federal government and Canada needs Alberta, yeah, we have a history of bowing to them. But we finally have a leader that's just like, no, you can't, when things are all good, you can't just shit on us, but then ask for our help when things get bad. That's not how this stuff works. But of course she's not going to say that because she's going for the Liberal Party of Canada, and you need Quebec for that. But what do you think? Do you think Chrystia Freeland would be a good, or not a good leader, but the best that the Liberals have as a potential leader for their party? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you haven't yet, you could take a little bit of time to subscribe. That would be awesome. And if you liked the video, please leave a like, and yeah, leave a comment. Other than that, have a great day.